Well, at least we have that. So, you know, I don't know
Right.
how people did this 100 years ago.
Right. I don't think they did do it 100
No.
years ago.
Yeah. Lots of letters and journaling, I think.
Right. I think it was, yeah, write a romantic letter. But yeah, quite different now
Yeah.
in good ways.
Well, it is. And I do feel for those that are missing the milestones, I guess, that we all had about graduation and prom and
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are these rituals that you go through that kind of signal you're an adult now. You have finished this process of your childhood education and now you're moving on to the adult world. And to make that transition without those rituals and those signposts is a really different sort of thing. I think her biggest concern is what's happening with college in the fall,
yeah.
because I think a lot of universities are making those decisions pretty soon. Like, are we going to have a normal fall semester with people in the dorms and in-person classes, or are we going to continue to go online? And that is what she's not really excited about. Like she's been looking forward to college forever. She wants to go and, have roommates and the whole experience. And so to have that up in the air is, I think, the most stressful part of it.
Has she decided on where she'll go in the fall?
Yeah, so she's right. Go.
Yeah.
She's been going to Brigham Young University in
Okay.
Utah, but now she's like, maybe I'll take a gap year. So yeah, we will see.
Well, I'll be curious how many folks take a gap year or a year of service or something like that, because
right. I actually wrote a story about this that I think is going to be in the New York Times this week.
Congratulations.
Thanks. I'm excited. And yeah, about 40% of high school seniors are now contemplating taking a gap year, and what are the options for them? But it could really change how high schoolers think about that transition to college. Like gap years are really popular in other places, less popular here. And maybe this will just be the turning point moment where everyone says, okay, let's all take a gap year and we'll all agree.
Yeah.
So
there's been a lot of research at the Aspen Institute about the idea of the year of service, of so many decades of people like myself who our peers didn't necessarily go off to war. I mean, many of them did post 9/11, but just this notion of what it means to give back to your community in a way that you would if you join the military. And now that many people are not doing that, and we're thankful for those, of course, that do, is there another sort of standardized way that folks can take a year off and have that value of outside of our interest of the future to give back to the country? So it kind of pairs a little with that.
Right. And it research shows that it really prepares people for college and helps them grow up and figure out what they want to do. So it's definitely could be a good thing. So we will see what happens.
Well, I look forward to seeing it in the Times. If it happens, let me know.
I know.
Or I might just see it on my own, on my online subscription. So okay, so it's 3:01. Melanie and I have been just chatting away, catching up. We haven't seen each other physically in 1 year since we were in Philadelphia last year together. But I want to welcome everybody on the call to this week's Try This Tuesday call. This is the second week of what we're calling Try This Tuesday for the Greensboro Chamber Action Calls. So welcome everybody, and those of you who are popping on in the next few minutes. We're really excited to have Melody Warnick join us today from Blacksburg, Virginia. Of course, she is the author of one of my favorite books, This Is Where You Belong, The Art and Science of Loving the Place You Live, which of course I do, and I know that Melody does. Before we jump into the conversation, I want to make a couple of announcements. If you've missed any of the previous calls over the last, I think, 5 weeks, the Chamber has been hosting these calls They are all archived on the chamber website, which is of course greensboro.org. You can go on the call, you can listen to any of those calls. The specific site is greensboro.org/COVID-19, which also includes all sorts of resources to our members and business community looking for grant opportunities, loan opportunities, you name it. The chamber has done a really great job of making a directory of resources for our local community on that site. So make sure to do that. Second is, please follow us on social media. The chamber is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GSO Chamber. So you can get all the latest information there. And of course, if you want to follow Action Greensboro, you can follow us at Action GSO on Twitter and Action Greensboro on Facebook. Other two commercials. One is, if you haven't filled out the census yet, it is the time to fill out the census. Yesterday on the Action Greensboro call, Heidi Carlone with UNCG School of Education reminded us that a great activity to do with your children while homeschooling is to take the census together, to talk about the importance of that. So if you haven't done that, please do. It's your count really helps us to get much needed federal dollars and of course, congressional seat representation in Washington for the state and all other communities across the country. So please take the census. Our friends at DGI are hosting a fundraiser in partnership with Cone Health right now. They have a GoFundMe page online. So if you go to DGI's website or their Instagram or Facebook, you can find that information. You'll make a donation, which will then provide meals from downtown restaurants to healthcare workers at Cone Health. We think this is a really cool opportunity. I think it's a triple bottom line. You get a tax deduction. Healthcare workers on the front line are getting delicious meals. And of course, we're also supporting our downtown restaurants. So we really encourage you to do that. So that's my pre-commercials. I've got a couple at the end, but I want to make sure that we have time today to talk to Melody. So I'm Cecelia Thompson with Action Greensboro, the sister organization of the Chamber. Melody Warnick, we have known each other, I think, since 2017, when Melody came down to Greensboro to speak at the Synergy Lead Your City conference. Her book was hot off the shelf, I think then. And the book, as I mentioned, is called This Is Where You Belong, The Art and Science of Loving the Place You Live. So welcome, Melody.
Thanks so much for having me, Cecelia. I'm happy to be with you.
Glad that you can be with us. So first of all, I just wanted to ask you, how are you? We heard a little about what's going on in your family, but wanted to also hear about what's happening in Blacksburg and how things are just north of us.
It is an interesting experience. So Blacksburg is a college town. It's the home of Virginia Tech, and probably more than half of our population here is students. So, right when this was all starting in March, Virginia Tech shut down or they converted to online courses like I think every university in the country. They strongly encourage students to go home. So we have lost a huge chunk of our population, and our businesses here have lost business associated with the university students and also business associated with the events around the university. Graduation is a huge weekend for our businesses here in town, as thousands and thousands of families come in to see their students graduate. That got canceled. It got shifted to online. So it's an interesting kind of double whammy situation because, of course, our town is dealing with social distancing like everyone else and trying to be good about staying inside. But our town has kind of hollowed out from university students going home. But overall, I think we're doing really well. I saw an instant response to COVID-19 online as Facebook groups formed to take care of each other. There's a Facebook group that cares specifically for the elderly and immunocompromised in the New River Valley, and other groups that are making masks and things like that. So in a way, it's also been really energizing and refreshing to see people pull together in ways that I think haven't necessarily happened for a while, or at least it's made people really conscious of our duty to each other, our duty to the small businesses in our community, and just kind of what we get out of being in community with each other.
Yeah, I was rereading your book a little bit this morning, and while your first chapter is called The Lost Art of Staying Put, that was kind of written in a different reference in the sense of staying put in one city versus another city. But it really resonated with me because I think that's something that we're all experiencing right now, is this idea of staying put in home, but also practicing these acts of kindness or togetherness through our neighbors and our various communities within the city in just different ways. So I kind of giggled at that notion today.
Right. I hadn't thought about that connection at all. Yeah. Originally, I wrote the book because I had been really mobile, moving around from city to city for a while. I have now been in Blacksburg. It will be 8 years this summer, which is a crazy record for my family. We haven't been in any other place this long in, since my childhood. I haven't. But yeah, it was sort of based on this idea that no matter where we are, we need to make a conscious effort to feel like part of that community. And that's definitely true right now, as we're sort of forced to stay home. Learning to reach out to other people has to be something that we're mindful about, and something we kind of make an effort to do.
Yeah. So that leads to this idea of place attachment. And you talk about that in your book, of course, the science behind place attachment, how we become more connected to the communities in which we live. So can you kind of set the stage of getting to Blacksburg, maybe a short journey there, and then what is place attachment?
Yes. So my family was living in Austin, Texas. My husband gotten a job there, and we thought, this is the place where we're going to be forever. And we had only been there about a year and a half, and my husband decided to apply for a job at Virginia Tech University, and he got it, and all of a sudden we were moving again. And I have this habit of, every time we moved, I would sort of tell myself that, okay, this next place, and now, we thought it was going to be Austin, but really it's going to be Blacksburg. This is going to be the place where we stay forever and our lives are better and different. And then we got here, and it was this small southern town. We didn't know anyone, didn't know our way around, and it didn't feel like home at all. And I kind of hated it at first. It just wasn't working for me. And so in that existential crisis of feeling like this place stinks, but I'm stuck here for the time being, I wanted to know, why do some places make us feel at home and some places don't? And what can we do to increase that feeling of being at home in a place? And so I, as someone who's spent my career as a writer and as a journalist, I like to research. So I started doing the research about this, and discovered that there's this term, place attachment, that's used to describe that feeling of emotional connection that we have for the place where we live. And it stems from all kinds of things, sort of like a vast collection of emotions. So there's actually a place attachment quiz in the book that you can take. And so some of the things that might help you know.
Melanie, I thought it might be fun actually to do it with everybody.
Do you want to do it?
And have the chat. Yeah, you want to do it?
Yes, let's do it. Okay, so here's the instruction. This is for you to find out whether you're place attached or not. And I will read, let's just do, in the book there are 24 items. That's a little long. So let's just do 10. And I will read a statement. All you have to do is decide whether you agree with that for yourself. And, assuming you live in Greensboro, but if not, just wherever you happen to live. So number one, I feel like I belong in this community. I've lived here a long time. I know a lot of people here. I know my way around. I like to tell people about where I live. If something exciting were happening in this community, I'd want to be involved. My town isn't perfect, but there are a lot of things that make me love it. The people who live here are my kind of people. I care about the future success of this town, and there is no other place I'd rather live. So that's just 10 of the 24, questions or statements in the place attachment quiz in the book. But those are the kinds of things that indicate whether you're place attached or not. The second one, I've lived here a long time. Well, there in Blacksburg, I was kind of screwed on that one. I was brand new. But for the other ones about knowing people, knowing my way around, telling people about where I live, being excited about the future of my community, those were the kinds of things that I realized I could have some control over. And so my whole thought process was that maybe I could engage in behaviors that would increase place attachment for myself, that would make me feel more in love with Blacksburg, and that maybe other people could do in their communities. So I devised what I called Love Where You Live experiments. And they were little action steps that were designed to make me feel more place attachment. And they were mostly really simple. They range from things like from walking more in my neighborhood, to volunteering for a local historic movie theater, to shopping at the farmer's market more often. And as I did some of these things over time, here's the spoiler alert, so no one actually has to read the book. I found that it genuinely made a difference for me. And some of it, I'm sure, was just time. By the time I finished the project, I'd been in Blacksburg for a couple years. But a lot of it was being proactive about connecting with people in my community, connecting with things that were happening in my community, and cultivating this feeling of positivity and love toward it.
Yeah, so I see that Joyce has put in the comments that she's a yes to all 10. And so I'm curious if others will share their scores in the chat function. Of course, we are taking questions throughout the conversation, so also feel free to chime in. Would love to know where everyone lands on the place attachment assessment in that process. So feel free to do that. So the other, we've got another 9. I like it. So when I went through the list of things that you could do while exercising, this idea of becoming more attached to the place, what you call relatively doable and potentially enjoyable tasks, I was really surprised that you can do all of these things while social distancing. You can still shop with local stores. You can certainly walk around your neighborhood. I think that is an advantage of communities like Blacksburg and Greensboro, that we are beautiful cities with lots of green spaces, and we're dense enough to have the intellectual capital of our colleges and universities, but we also have kind of enough space within our neighborhoods to be able to get out and enjoy and support neighbors. And so, one of the things I mentioned earlier, that I just moved, and I just moved down the street, of course. And earlier this year, my mother was asking me, like, who are your neighbors? This is like pre-COVID. Mm-hmm. And she would ask me, like, who's this person? Who's this person? What do they do? And what do they like? And I was like, I have no idea, Mom. I'm like way too busy to deal with this. She's like, well, if you had a party, you could invite your neighbors over. And I was like, I'm not even sure what that would look like. And I was just like, it seemed so foreign to me. And then the last 5 weeks, I've become so close with my neighbors by this notion that connecting with people is, I think, inherent in human nature. And now I'm like, well, why haven't I done this before? So one thing is, your mom's always right. And second is that you can build community really wherever you are. If you're staying put within your house, there are so many ways to connect, and that makes me feel even more proud, I would say, for my neighborhood and for my city. And so
So Cecelia, can I interrupt and like
yeah.
have you share what you did in the COVID times to get to know your neighbors?
Yeah. So what have I done? I mean, of course I knew them well enough to know like where, what their names are across the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see them in the yard, and they're my parents' age, and the age that you probably shouldn't be going to the grocery store. And I said, why don't I get your groceries for you? And so that led to me shopping for them, to get groceries, to them saying, well, we take our glass recycling to First Presbyterian Church every Monday. Do you want us to take your glass, because that's the safe thing that they can do? And so we call it our weekly confessional, where we put our wine bottles in the back of his truck to take to the
You have to
recycle.
admit how many wine bottles there actually are.
Exactly, like judgment-free
Right.
zone. My neighbor Paige across the street is actually amazing. She's been putting these mask making and shield making kits together. It's like Grand Central Station out there. Cars come up all day long picking up the materials. And so I brought her some sweet rolls one day just to thank her for everything she's doing. So just little things, but it does make me feel more connected. So I wondered if you're seeing the list of relatively doable and potentially enjoyable things to connect with your city in a different light now.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a whole chapter in the book about connecting with your neighbors, wherein I admit my failings with this, that I haven't always been great at this. And part of it is, just like everyone else, we're busy. I think society in general has shifted away from socializing with neighbors, and more we socialize with, other friends or coworkers. And so what I've seen happen lately is our worlds have shrunk. And so because we're in our homes, hopefully all day or most of the day, all of a sudden we are becoming extraordinarily conscious of the people around us, and we feel this need to reach out to people and take care of them. So there's a family across the street from me that husband and wife worked in one of the campus bookstores that closed when the university closed. So they're both out of a job. They have a little daughter, and they're kind of always outside. And we have gotten to know them a little bit since they moved in last year. We had some of our neighbors over for dinner right before Christmas. But now in this interesting pandemic situation, it really feels, I feel a sense of responsibility for them. I think we all are. It feels like our street is the whole world, kind of. So a couple examples that I've seen of neighbors connecting with neighbors around the country, and I'm not sure if this is happening, if you've seen this in Greensboro. A group here in town started something called a bear hunt, where they encourage people to put stuffed animals in the windows, so kids, when they're out on walks, can spot them. We put a teddy bear in the window here in my office. I've seen examples of neighbors doing group Zumba in the backyard, bring a Zumba, a neighbor who was a Zumba instructor stands on their deck and everyone else is in their backyard, all doing Zumba together, but socially distanced. I've seen music become a huge factor for a lot of people. Porch concerts, people coming out on the porch at 6 p.m. every night and playing a favorite song. I've seen videos on Twitter of a neighborhood in St. Louis, I think, where two of the neighbors, one plays a trumpet and one plays a tuba, and they walk down the street, just playing music. I love examples like that because they're so grassroots and spontaneous. No one spent months organizing this thing or putting it together, asking for volunteers. It just sort of happened, people feeling the need to come out of their homes more than they have. like you said to your mom, you know, when am I gonna find the time, or what would it even look like to get together with our neighbors? And I think some of us, and I will definitely put myself in that category, feel this sort of resistance sometimes to connecting with people. If I reach out to the elderly lady next door, what if she like starts calling me all the time, and you know, or she starts dropping by, and some of those barriers are dropping, where we realize that we actually want that, and we crave that.
Yeah. And that it feels good, right?
Yeah.
That once you do make those connections, and um, then there is like this silver lining almost to all the fear and anxiety that is in the world right now, to what has always been across the street, and you just didn't find the time or the place to make those connections. Synergy, young professionals here, they're putting together a placemaking activity where everyone's decorating their mailboxes. And so it's UPS friendly, but also just sort of this idea of we can make design, you know, at our place to brighten up the streets. And of course, we've seen a lot of sidewalk chalk
Yeah.
here in front of neighborhoods. So
And it's like this sense of unity that you
yeah,
get. It's so easy and fun. I have a neighbor here in town who a couple weeks ago, you know, went out to get her mail and realized that one of the neighbors had put balloons on all the mailboxes down the street. And it was anonymous. She didn't even know who it was, but it was just like this sense of we're all in this together. And I think that's what a lot of us have felt, is we're all in this together. And hopefully there's also this feeling of fear as well. I don't know if you've gone to the grocery store recently, but when I go to the grocery store in my town, there's definitely a feeling of, you're about to get me sick, aren't you? You know, like this feeling of nervousness and almost suspicion, and so you see that coming out too, and I think we're trying to do these other things to remind people that you know, we're all in this together. We are good people at heart, and remind ourselves of what we have in common.
yeah. I'm wondering what you think about sort of the multiplier effect of all of these little things, right? I mean, it's this kind of intangible we're unity, right? But is there something that when we talk about city brand or community, you know, vibe, is there something that's going to look different? You're looking sort of into the future. Will our community's spirit be different by how we reacted individually now?
Yeah, I hope so. I think this is a watershed moment for place attachment. You know, if we talk about place attachment as the result of all these little actions that we take, these little behaviors that we engage in that help remind us that we're part of a community and that we can make that community better, and that there's value in connecting not only with other humans, but with businesses, with public spaces, and all the things that make our community. I think we are accruing a lot of that right now, by writing chalk messages on your sidewalk, or by decorating your mailbox, or you know, offering to get groceries for your neighbors. All those things, I think, and I don't have any current data, but I'm guessing if we did a study right now to measure levels of place attachment in cities and small towns, we would see a pretty dramatic rise, is my guess. My hope is that that lasts after the pandemic is under control and life goes back to normal. I'm hoping that that bump will continue, and that people will that this will have a lasting impact on people's sense of community identity. Like, you know, you mentioned place branding, all those things that we do to try to shape the way people see their city. And I think that this moment is huge for how we see our city, how we value things like grocery stores and restaurants that do delivery and first responders. And I really hope that shapes our identity. I think it's one reason why we're all craving those good news stories right now. Just this morning, I watched John Krasinski's Good News Network on YouTube with my daughter. And I think people love that stuff right now because we want to be reminded of the good. We want to be reminded of that sense of connection. And so I think when we can see those signs of good news in our own towns and hear those stories, it builds that sense of place attachment and community identity that I hope will have lasting effects into the future.
Yeah, I agree. And I wonder how it will be documented in a way. I think there was a piece in the Times this week about the request during World War II to start journaling. And of course, that ended up being things like the diary from Anne Frank. And we are probably not by nature, because we're so connected to our screens these days, probably journaling the way that many did then. But will those YouTube videos and Instagram and TikTok, will that one day be sort of like meshed together to give the future a sense of the way that we coped and connected and found hope during strange and trying times?
Everyone's going to be going back and watching the John Krasinski videos, like 30 years in the future. Like, this is what it was like.
Yeah. And for high schoolers, you were mentioning your 18-year-old, the Page High School principal here, Eric Nagley. He is actually visiting all of the seniors' home and doing videos of, I think this is so cool. He's doing videos. They all have their sweatshirts on of maybe the college or the apprenticeship program they're doing. And they're talking about kind of this moment in time for them, and he's putting that together into one big video. And so there's just such interesting and hopeful things happening right now.
I love that. That's really sweet. Yeah, one of the things that I've seen come out of this, which I think is really interesting, is that small businesses have become more visible and human members of the community. Some small businesses have always been great at this, but I think in the aftermath of the pandemic, I think a lot of business people have kind of put themselves forward as real members of the community. They're trying to solve problems, and they're also honest about their hopes and fears and what they need. And I think that humanizing effect, people willing to share their stories and share their good news too, is a really great idea. We have a small business in our town called Sugar Magnolia. It's a little ice cream and candy and gift shop on Main Street, and my older daughter actually works there. And they've been been pivoting hard to try and save their business during this hard time. And so one of the things they did is offer Sunday bars to go. So you get like a quart of nice ice cream, and you get waffle cones and toppings, and all like in a nice package. So we bought one of those for our neighbors across the street with the young daughter. And so it, speaking of triple bottom line, you feel good about it. You're supporting a business, you're helping your neighbor, and if you were smart like me and you bought one for yourself, you guys. So
yeah, quadruple bottom line.
Right, exactly.
So there are 10, I'm going to read the 10 relatively doable and potentially enjoyable behaviors. And I would love to hear from you in the sense of, I said, I think all of these are doable right now while we're social distancing, but maybe you have some recommendations for ideas that are tweaked for today's day. So the first one is walk more. I'm certainly doing that. Buy local, get to know your neighbors, do fun stuff, explore nature, volunteer, eat local, become more political, create something new, and stay loyal through hard times, which is really relevant. So,
yes.
So
They're
talk
really
more about those 10 and what you might think you could recommend us doing.
So it was interesting. I did exactly what you did. And I looked at the list to be like, how many of these can actually apply right now? And I was pleasantly surprised to realize basically all of them. Buying local and eating local food, I think everyone, realizes that we need to support our local businesses right now. I think, for my family, we've been making a concerted effort to get takeout a couple times a week. But I also, and this this is different. I left Yelp reviews for a few of the restaurants that I patronize, like COVID-19 Yelp reviews. This restaurant did a great job with delivery. It was safe. It felt healthy and fine. And I was 3 business owners replied to me on Yelp to be like, thank you for the kind words. We really need some kind words right now. And it made me realize this is a simple, safe thing that people can do to kind of give a shout out to businesses in your town that you love and want to support right now. So, getting to know your neighbors, we've talked about a few ways to do that. One simple idea, if you haven't already done it, or if you don't know your neighbors, is to, write a note saying, my name is Melody and here's my phone number. Please give me a call if you need help with, groceries or walking your dog or anything like that. Those of us who maybe are in less vulnerable populations can make an effort to reach out to neighbors who may be in the more vulnerable populations. I think nature right now is a saving grace, and it's becoming a little bit of a struggle. Here in Virginia, and maybe this is everywhere, the state parks are shut down, the National Forest Service areas. So a lot of the hikes around here that we would normally be going on are off limits. But I think it goes back to walking. Anytime we spend time outside, we sort of see our place in its, its most basic, beautiful way. And now during spring is especially great. One thing I've noticed is a resurgence in gardening. So people are spending more time in their yards and they look great. And it's a way to help, I think getting in the dirt a little helps connect you with your place. And a note on resilience. So the last chapter of my book is about staying loyal to your place, even despite hard times. And I talked specifically about the Virginia Tech shootings, which happened before I moved to Blacksburg, but which was still very much on everyone's minds when we got here. And the anniversary was just last week. And typically Virginia Tech they do a race called 3.2 for 32. It's like a run walk around campus that people do in honor of the victims of that shooting. They couldn't hold it this year, but instead they did an online version. People could download an app and they could do their own 3.2 and then record the miles in the app and post online about it. And it was, I think, 11,000 people participated over the weekend. So I think there are things like that are still pulling us together. And like we were talking about earlier, I hope that even when this is all a distant memory, that it is this really unusual experience where we're all going through a hard thing collectively. And I hope we remember that. And I hope it brings us together in loyalty to our communities.
So Holly has and I'm going to tell you, my dog's been barking at me, but I've been patiently on mute. So hopefully he will not bark now. So Holly with the Chamber just reminded us that they launched a bingo activity today, and it's going to happen, I think, for the next couple of weeks. And so all these kinds of ideas around connecting with your community are, of course, on the bingo card. So certainly welcome to see that activity.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah. Well, I think you're spot on in terms of the connections and getting creative with the ways that we can practice those 10 activities to better connect. And there's certainly so many ways that people can do that and are finding out how they can better connect. So I haven't seen a whole lot of questions on the chat, but we certainly welcome those. I will mention that Scuppernong Books is our downtown bookstore. Melody spoke at Scuppernong when she visited Greensboro several years ago. They are doing online book sales, and so you can call them. I think you go on their website. If you want to read Melody's book, you can order it and they'll even deliver it. It's a great way to support the community and learn more and then spread the wealth and from your learnings. So any other thoughts, Melody, before we wrap up today's Try This Tuesday?
I think the big thing that I learned from studying place attachment and then trying to apply it in my life was that it comes down to people. You know, when we say community, what we really mean is people, you know, not just the physical place. And so that's really challenging right now as we're trying to socially distance. But if we can remember that what we really want to do here is take care of people, help the people in our community who own businesses, help the people who live and go to school and work in our communities, then we just have to find creative ways to do that. But I think the payoff is worth it. One thing I talk about in the book is that in communities that have higher levels of place attachment, local GDP rises.
Yeah.
So the things that we're doing right now to build that place attachment will have financial ramifications later on, and hopefully will help pull us out of this economic tragedy that we're into.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've been on a couple of calls with friends and some of them that work for big corporations had said, you know, I feel like I'm so distanced from the people that are on the front lines in the sense of, you know, I'm not working in a healthcare, or I'm not supporting the homeless population. There's so many things that these essential workers are doing, and they're heroes for doing it. But sort of this sense of doubt that we are not, those of us that aren't in those roles aren't contributing. But I think what you're saying is, by doing these simple acts of shopping locally and supporting each other's neighbors, like these are the kinds of things that are really impactful, and that we'll see the measurable impact of those in years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. They feel small, but they're actually big in terms of how they positively affect our communities.
Exactly. So someone from the chat room has asked, you were mentioning at the front of the call that you have an upcoming article in the Times about a gap year, and they wanted to know a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so this is my first piece for the New York Times. I'm really excited about it. And it was inspired by my daughter's situation of supposedly she's supposed to be going off to college this fall and may choose to take a gap year instead if it's some weird online learning situation. So the article is sharing ideas for what to do with a gap year if you end up taking it, everything from taking online courses, you know, learning how to code, learning a foreign language, or joining AmeriCorps or some national service program. So it's supposed to show up sometime this week. So I'm excited to see it.
Well, we'll make sure to share it when it comes out.
Yeah, I will let you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Holly West has shared the link to Melody's book on Scuppernong's website. So no excuses, you know how to get it. So before we sign off, I guess my challenge to all of our residents in Greensboro is maybe over the next 10 days to practice one of these activities. I, for one, have already taken a walk today and plan to order food from my favorite Vietnamese restaurant for dinner tonight. But certainly there are so many things that everyone can do in the city to really make a difference here. And so feel like you are a part of the solution and part of the charge ahead to bring our community together and to forge forward in a positive way. So Melody, thank you so much for joining this conversation today.
Thank you so much. I love talking about this, and it was great being with you, Cecelia.
Awesome. Awesome. So I do want to make two quick commercials before we all sign off. Yesterday was an exciting day because the Greensboro Chamber announced their keynote speaker for the Impact Leadership Conference that's happening later on in the fall. John Gordon is going to be the speaker, and we're excited to have John on the call on Friday at 3 p.m. Brent Christensen, the Chamber CEO, will be interviewing John about his books, of course, which I'm sure are also available on Scapernauk's website. And so we encourage you to do that. And tickets are available to that conference in October, whether we're in person or online. The conference will happen. And so we hope that you will do that. Finally, tomorrow is Work from Home Wednesday. So we're excited that Deborah Hooper, our COO, is going to be joined by Gary Fly, who is with the Brooks Group. Gary is the Chief Marketing Officer. Jeb Brooks was on the call last Tuesday to talk about how he's turned his passion into a side gig. And Jeb's company, the Brooks Group, Gary works very close with Gary, and they're going to talk about how to sell through social distancing. So they are a sales training company, and I'm sure going to provide a lot of great tips and techniques and expertise to those that are looking for new ways to sell online. So we appreciate everybody on the call. Melody, thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.